We stand in awe of your glory. We stand in awe of your power. I'm amazed, so amazed. We stand in awe of your presence. Stand in awe of your presence. We stand in awe of your glory. Stand in awe of your glory. We stand in awe of your power. So I'm amazed, so amazed. We stand in awe of your presence. We stand in awe of your glory. We stand in awe of your glory. We stand in awe of your power. We stand in awe of your power. I'm amazed, so amazed. You are the great one, and mighty is your name. We sing hallelujah, marvelous in all your ways. You're still performing miracles like you did in the Bible days. I still believe in your word, and forever I will say, we stand in awe of your glory. We stand in awe of your glory. We stand in awe of your power. So we stand in awe of your majesty. We stand in awe dominion and power. Both now and forever. I'm amazed, so amazed. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. I'm amazed, so amazed. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. I'm amazed, so amazed. Hallelujah. We stand in awe of your presence. We stand in awe of your glory. We stand in awe of your power. I'm amazed, so amazed. Amazed at your glory. Amazed at your power. Amazed at your splendor. Majesty in your glory. So amazed by you, God. Amazed by you, God. So amazed, so amazed, so amazed. Amazed at your glory. Amazed at your power. So amazed. The way you heal, the way you deliver, the way you set free. We stand in awe of your presence. We stand in awe of your glory. We stand in awe of your power. I'm amazed, so amazed. Let your glory fall. Let your presence fall. Ooh, we give you glory. We stand in amazement.
I got it. You got it, you got it. We got it, we got it. Verse. Jehovah Jireh. You've been my provider. We
You are my provider.
And you're my rider.
And you're my rider.
You've been with me through the fire.
You've been with me through the fire.
Yeah. I got it. You got it, you got it. We got it, we got it. Yeah, yeah. I got it. You got it, you got it. We got it, we got it. Verse.
Jehovah Jireh.
You've been my provider.
You are my provider.
And you're my rider.
And you're my rider.
You've been with me through the fire.
You've been with me through the fire.
Yeah. No worries, giving up.
Giving up now.
Know the devil.
Know the devil thinks
Cause I'm walking
Cause
in
I'm walking in my
victory. Staying with it.
Staying with you long as you're with me.
Let's go. You made a way.
You made a way.
Out of no way.
Out of no way.
You keep on blessing me.
You keep on blessing me.
Every day.
Every day.
Fight on my battles.
Fight on my battles. You say the day.
That's why I give you all the glory. Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
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 I give you glory, I give you glory.
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 It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Hey. It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Hey. Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like the Lord, yeah.
Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
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 It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Hey. It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Hey. You made a way.
You made a way.
Out of no way.
Out of no way.
You keep on blessing me.
You keep on blessing me.
Every day.
Every day.
Fight on my back.
Fight on my back.
You say the day.
You say the day.
That's why I give you all the glory. Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like the Lord, yeah.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
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 It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Yeah. It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Yeah. Jehovah Jireh.
Jehovah Jireh.
You've been my provider.
You are my provider.
And you're my rider.
And you're my rider.
You've been with me through the fire.
You've been with me through the fire.
Yeah. No worries, giving up.
Giving up now.
Know the devil.
Know the devil thinks
Cause I'm walking
Cause I'm
in
walking in my
victory. Staying with it.
Staying with me
Long as you're with me. You made a way.
You made a way.
Out of no way.
Out of no way.
You keep on blessing me.
You keep on blessing me.
Every day.
Every day.
Fight on my back.
Fight on my back. You say the day.
That's why I give you all the glory. Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Ain't nobody do me like
Yeah.
you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like the Lord, yeah.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like the Lord, yeah.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you
I give you glory, I give you glory.
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 It's already mine.
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 It's already yours.
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 It's already ours.
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 Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like the Lord, yeah.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, yeah, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Hey. It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Hey. Let's do it one more time. Jehovah Jireh,
Jehovah Jireh,
you've been my provider,
you are my provider,
and you're my rider.
and you're my rider.
You've been with me through the fire.
You've been with me through the fire.
Yeah. No worries, cause you're giving up.
Even up now.
No, the devil,
No, the devil can't
cause
stop
I'm
me.
walking
Cause I'm
in
walking in my
victory.
victory.
Staying with me long as you're with me. Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like the Lord, yeah.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
It's already mine.
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 It's already yours.
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 It's already ours.
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 Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like the Lord, yeah.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Hey. It's already mine.
It's already mine.
Hey. Hallelujah. If you know that it's already yours, just lift your hands and give him praise on this morning. Hallelujah.
Gender is a pre-written book, and the plot is boring. Daughter, girlfriend, mother, wife, rip out the pages, staple them to your back, and start soaring. Pretty, quiet, weak. They will try to describe you with such things, but you will use their stereotypes and turn them into your wings. When you choose to challenge, gender is a pre-written book, but not all the girls' stories end the same way. 33,000 girls are forced to become child brides every day. 132 million girls are not in school, and their futures are balloons that they watch drift away. But you are the full stop to the story. You are the new sentence that takes it on a different road. When you speak up, you open your palms and you share the load when you choose to challenge. Gender is a pre-written book, but not all of the characters are included, like the First Nations women who stand as still as statues, always walked past but never acknowledged or seen, or migrant women whose culture stands like a skyscraper, and they're forced to burn down the parts of themselves society doesn't deem convenient, or refugee women who are treated with brutality when we should have been lenient. And you are there as this story unfolds and you are faced with a choice. So choose to challenge. Gender is a pre-written book, and this is your chance to add your own chapter, to call out racism and sexism and use courage to rub it out, to stand where the rest of the world has chosen to sit, to call it out at home, at work, at school, bit by bit, to scream where the world has chosen to whisper, not just for your daughter, your mother, or your sister. Let us choose to challenge. Gender is a pre-written book, and if you're listening to this, then your actions are the pen. Your life is the paper. You are not the oppression of the past. I believe that you are so much greater, stronger, kinder. Choose to create history, not to be created by it. Choose to challenge.
God bless you. God bless you. Welcome to Wednesday night Bible study. I'm Lady Kenyatta Pryor, and I am here with some wonderful women from Victorious Believers Ministries. And as the spoken word just went forth, we are going to have a discussion about women in the Bible, and how appropriate, because this month is National Women's History Month. And a couple of days ago on Monday, we actually celebrated International Women's Day. And so we want you to stay tuned. We have some exciting things that we want to share, and we want you to be a part of the conversation, and we want you to share it with some people that you see may not be on. They're trying to skip out on Bible study on Wednesday night. Just send them a quick little note, have them, and maybe even share it from your Facebook or from your YouTube page. We want everybody to get involved in our conversation. Be sure and share your comments and your thoughts in the chat. And we want to just have a very engaging conversation as we talk about women in the Bible. And so many women in the Bible have gone to do, some great exploits. And we know that there are some women in the Bible who had very rough times. But isn't that life that we're living even today? And so we want you to just engage with us, and just to be sure and send up some hearts if you hear something, send up some likes. Be sure and share and communicate with us in the chat. And as you can see, I'm not by myself. I have some wonderful, wonderful women from Victorious Believers Ministries who's joining me this evening. I want to introduce Sister Ivy Akowuah. She is a wonderful millennial young lady, and she works with our young adults at the ministry. And so we say, welcome, Ivy. Thank you for joining. And we also have Missionary Lula Woodard, who does so many things in the ministry. She is in our Christian education department for so many years. She spearheaded our scholastic motivation and just has done wonderful things in the ministry, just a wonderful missionary. Also, we have Sister Sharon Buffalo. She is in our fine arts department. She's a wonderful liturgical dancer, and she also works with our children's ministry. And last but certainly not least, we have our beloved co-founder, Evangelist Ruth C. Pryor, joining us. I told her today, you cannot not be on this session with a name like Ruth, and we're talking about women in the Bible. So we just thank her for being a part of our discussion as well. And I think it's just timely because I know for the last few weeks in our segment in Sunday school, we were talking about various women in the Bible. So for all of you who were on Saturday night Sunday school, make sure you pick up those notes when we were talking about different women, and make sure that you engage in our conversation. And like I said, we know that women have played a prominent role from the beginning, but not necessarily have received the respect and recognition, from her contributions. And so we want to talk about not only in the Bible time, but we see it today. We see lots of movements, and the women have really taken their stand in our history over the years. And so, and that torch has just been carried on year after year, decade after decade. And so women are definitely have played a prominent role throughout history and continue to blaze trails in our history and in our world. So I hope you enjoyed the spoken word poem, and we're just going to kick it off right there. The theme for this year's National Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. Again, that is choose to challenge. And I think they picked that theme because when you choose to challenge, or when you challenge, that's when change comes. Change never came from people sitting back and, covering their mouth and being silent. But we know people had to make up in their mind to choose to change. And so I'm going to ask the ladies, I'm going to start off with Sister Ivy. When we think about that theme for our International Women's Day, choose to challenge, what thoughts come to mind as far as what do you think we need to challenge as women?
Yeah, first of all, it's so exciting to be here with these wonderful women just to talk about us, because I feel like a lot of times we are forgotten and we are neglected. So this theme, Choose to Challenge, when I heard it, I instantly started thinking about me. I think a lot of times we are given the perception to always challenge something or someone. But for me, I instantly thought about myself, because I know that as a woman, in order for me to be able to challenge anything or anyone else, it has to start with me. And I mean, not even just for women, but for anybody. But because as a woman, it's always been so easy for us to kind of sit back, not speak up. Our voices are not necessarily heard because we are always told that it's not needed. Challenging myself to step up anyway when I feel like I may not be needed or my voice may not want to be heard. Challenge yourself to put yourself first in any and everything that we do. When I think about Naomi, she was very selfless in the act of always encouraging Ruth to think about herself, and just to tell other women that it's okay not to always challenge things and other people. And for me, I think this Choose to Challenge, I will start with me. Thank you.
That's very good. Thank you. Missionary Woodard, what would you like to add to what do we as women need to choose to challenge?
I think the other thing, excuse me, is that being able to be aware of what is happening in our world, and to be able to speak to those things, to be able to do change when it comes to policies and procedures, be knowledgeable about those things and be able to share it, be transparent about it. And as Ivy has said, Sister Ivy said, first I need to take a look and inventory myself as to why am I doing this? Is it going to benefit others besides myself? Because it's never about me. It's always about the other person. And so being able to use my voice passionately and with humility as well, being that change agent that I want to see. So I become that, and also being a truth teller.
That's wonderful. So we heard Sister Ivy say to challenge yourself. And then you, Sister Woodard, said, to be aware of the things that are around you and not be selfish. But I think sometimes as women, we've heard all the time, putting the needs of others first and being selfless. And I think those things are important. But sometimes we can do that to a fault because we don't take time to invest in ourselves, refuel our tank, be healthy for ourselves because we're always concerned about somebody else. Don't get me wrong. It is important to be concerned about others, but how can you be concerned about others if you're kind of drowning yourself as a woman? So it's the whole analogy of put on the mask first in the airplane before you tend to the needs of others. And so there has to be a healthy balance there when it talks about meeting the needs of others and then also making sure that you take some self-ish time to make sure that your tank is full so you can pour out positive things, love, kindness, to other people. So Sister Buffalo, share with us your thoughts of what we need to choose to challenge as women.
So thank you for having me here, first of all. And I think we've had some very valid points that have been shared. For me, I think I take this personally as well. And I think for me as a challenge is to be an advocate for the young women, right? The little girls that are there that we as grown-ups have, again, always been taught to take a back seat. That we didn't have a seat at the table in making, the decisions. And a lot of the young girls are not necessarily going to take on a career in the business world. So that's a whole different story aspect in promoting in the women in the workplace. But when you think about the young girls, being advocates, let them know you do have a voice. When we can look at Vice President Kamala Harris and say, hey, this is how far we've come. Have we gotten where we should be? No, absolutely not. We still got a long way to go. But I think we need to challenge ourselves in how we communicate and how do we help the youth to be able to look at themselves and know that they have that power, the women, to be able to have a voice, whether it's in the community, whether it's as a nation, global, but they have the ability to do that. But we have to now challenge ourselves. How do we communicate that to them? How do we teach them that you do have a voice and it is worth hearing and that you do have the power to change? So that's my challenge, where I see that it would benefit the youth and the women, the young girls that are growing up, so that we raise strong women in society. So that's my comment on the challenge.
Absolutely. That's really good. And, I think about how in today's time, most little girls growing up now will always, for most of their life, see women in such prominent places, like you mentioned, Vice President Kamala Harris, to see, a woman ascend to that position, an African-American woman, and a Southeast Asian descent, ascend to that position is, an outstanding accomplishment. And so, to be an advocate for our young girls, and making sure that they understand their worth, understand their value, and understand their purpose in Christ. And I think that's the key is, when you have that relationship with Christ and understand, why he has created you and what he put you on this earth to do, there's nothing that we can accomplish as people, and especially as girls and women. So Evangelist Pryor, enlighten us, please. What as women should we choose to challenge?
Person on here tonight. My concern would be that is that me making the noise?
You're good now, much better.
Okay, I went off. My concern as far as challenging to help with change would be, as a senior woman, that I don't give up and stop, as Sister Buffalo said, encouraging the young women that they can make a difference. They have a lot of potential, and to use that potential. Don't look at where they may be right now. Sometimes we have a tendency to look at ourselves and say, I don't have this, I don't have that, so I'm not capable, I don't look like this person. And we get caught up on those things that are not important. But to convince them that they have a lot of ability, that God has blessed them with this ability, and to work towards, try to convince them to work towards fulfilling their purpose in life. And that can be a challenge for a lot of young people, because in our society, we think money, good looks, and all of that will take us where we need to go, but not necessarily. I think having good character is what we need to challenge people on today, because we have a lot of people who are out there, but their lives don't reflect the good lifestyles. And as you said, I was just so good. We're glad and thankful for our new vice president, be an example, especially for those people of color, that we can strive for greater things in life.
That's very good. And you touched on some very good points as far as, being an encourager, being a bridge builder between generations, because we absolutely need each other, in this day and time. And you also touched on the fact that how so many young girls and women are depleted of really knowing who they are. And oftentimes that acts out by, them really pouring into their external. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't take the time to look good, because before being on camera today, I didn't look so good. I had to, put on a little something, so I wouldn't scare the folks away on Facebook and YouTube. But I think that so many people feel like that their external defines them. And oftentimes you see people, especially celebrities and, people who are known for their exterior, are oftentimes depleted on the inside, because, their external is just that, not to say that you shouldn't, strive to, look good, but don't let that define you. Make sure that you're whole on the inside, because your beauty internally will exude on the outside. So thank you, ladies, for opening us up so eloquently and just sharing, what we should choose to challenge. The thing that stood out to me that she kept saying over and over again in her cadence on her spoken word is that gender is a pre-written book, meaning that you couldn't change the fact that God wanted you to be male or female. So that's the pre-written part, the fact that we are women as gender. But what goes on those pages in our book is not the same from person to person. And it's up to us to use the pen of our life to write the chapters in our book, so when we pass that book over and it goes down from generation to generation, others can learn, from our book of life. And so just to continue to choose the challenge, use our voice as women. So let's turn our attention to some wonderful women in the Bible. We're going to start with the women in the Old Testament, and just kind of give us maybe, a person. I don't like to call them characters, because when you think of characters, I think of Mickey Mouse. And these were actual people, actual women, who were flesh and blood, just like you and I. So these women have stories in the Old Testament in particular. So let's just talk about, how did God use women in the Old Testament to fulfill his will? Sister Ivy, would you kick us off, maybe sharing a person, or, just talking about how God used women to fulfill his will?
Yeah, so I love all women in the Bible, even, those that went through challenging times. God used everyone for different reasons. But one person that really I can relate to very well is Hannah. Hannah, as we know, the mother of Samuel, just went through years of, agony because she could not bear a child for her husband. And I admire Hannah very much because she taught me the essence of waiting on God. A lot of times it's hard for not just women. I mean, I know we're talking about women, but it just comes to show that, God can use anybody. It's not just, these big men in the Bible and the Davids. Yes, God used them, but Hannah taught me the essence of waiting on God. And when we understand the torture that her husband's second wife put her through, I just keep putting myself in that position of I would have lost it. I would have probably killed her and her children because, going through my own struggles and then using your accomplishments to rub it in my face, it's not godly. But one thing I admire about Hannah is she stayed the course and she had faith. Even though it was agonizing and she was always pouring her heart out. One thing that she had was her voice and her heart. And she used that to praise God and to ask God for her needs. And the crazy thing about all of this is when God finally gave her Samuel, she understood that this is my child, but he still doesn't belong to me. He belongs to God. And a lot of times in my life, I would just use myself as an example. As a woman, we tend to get very clingy. And I think it's because we are not necessarily given the opportunity to get much. So when we finally get it, like it could be a job, it could be your children. We like to hold on to things. But then God likes to remind us that those things are not for us. They're not for us. I mean, he blesses us with them, but he can take them away just like he gave them to us. And the fact that she understood that, going through years of not being able to bear a child and then finally having a child and giving that child away, I just feel like it's admirable. It's just a lesson for all of us to understand that once God blesses us with, no matter what it is, we always have to remember that it does not really belong to us. It still belongs to God, and always have the heart of sacrifice to always want to give that back to God in whatever sense we can.
That's great. And I think, you said it so perfectly, is that haters will be with us always. And it's just a part of life, and especially women, because we know women can be catty sometimes. And just the grace that Hannah, fulfilled. And that was the person that I was going to share how I related with because, of our infertility challenges, but just the grace that she exemplified, thank God she didn't have a touch of ivy in her, to pick up a bat and, bop her upside the head. But even when, they thought that she was drunk and a crazy woman, she still, had that resolve that, what, God, it's not a matter of if, but I know you, will fulfill your purpose, in my life at your right time. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit about Hannah's story. And so who is it in the Old Testament for you, Sister Woodard? Share with us, please.
How can I, in the fact that Hannah was my person? I have been studying Hannah for years, and I just, as I've said, and I can just put tag it a little bit by saying, in spite of all that she experienced from Penina, being bullied, being a woman that was looked upon, that you're not able to bear children. That was a stigma, a huge stigma back in those times. And that was, for her to deal with that, becoming depressed, I'm quite sure, experiencing what she had was experiencing from the other wife, and to see the children being born, and here I'm barren and I'm not having any, for years of going through that. But she learned through the trials, she learned how to rejoice. She learned through her triumph that prayer and praise is what she did. She began to pray. She began to intercede. They called her one of the great intercessors in the Bible, as well as one of the great prophetess in the Bible. But she learned that she could take everything to God in prayer. And when you read in 1 Samuel, the second chapter and the 1st through the 6th, it gives you that story and what compassion, to be able to go to the high priest, Eli, as he'd accused her of being drunk. And she could have blew up. She could have hit him in the head, but she didn't do any of that. She was graceful with him. She went and explained to him, this is what I've been going through. This is what I have requested of the Lord. And so he then heard her. He heard her heart, because it's out of the heart that we speak. And so she spoke out of the heart, and he heard her heart. And because of that, he said, God will grant you your request. And being the woman of her word, when Samuel was born, she took him to the temple. I think he was about 11 years old when she finally said, okay, I'm going to release my son to you and keep my commitment to God for the promise that he has given me of giving me this son that so it took away the stigma, and then she could rejoice and tell other women, what she's going through and how she handled that.
Wonderful. And I'm just looking here in the chat, and Missionary Little said that Rahab and Deborah are two of her favorite women, one a negotiator and another one a warrior. And I got a couple points that I want to share about some other warriors, in the Bible. You think about women sometimes, being meek and mild and patient, and graceful and very calm and, didn't talk back like Hannah did. But we got some other ones that drilled pegs in the head of, some of the army generals. It was a lot of women, warrior women in the Bible, who were responsible for killing the generals who were trying to kill the people of God. And so, sometimes, you got to take it by force, and sometimes you have to, do what you have to do. It's either you or me. And we know in the Bible that a lot of these warrior women were very strategic. And so thank you for sharing that, Missionary Littles. And so, Sister Sharon, share with us your Old Testament woman.
So my favorite character in the Old Testament is Ruth, and it's taken from the book of Ruth. And, for those of you who already know the story, for those of you who don't, Ruth was a Moabite woman who married an Israelite. So she was a foreigner. So I give her courage because she came into a land where she was not familiar with. She had to adapt to the culture, a different culture than what she'd come from. And I relate to that because I too am from one of the Caribbean islands. And when I came to America, I had to also adapt. Many people call me foreigner. Actually, today, some of my friends still say, "Hey, foreigner." But when you think about Ruth, and when she married Naomi's sons and her husband died, I have to give credit for her because her boldness to follow Naomi, where she said, and what's so profound for me is, your people will be my people, your God will be, where you go, I'll go, your God will be my God. And I have to believe that Naomi had a great part to play in this, for her to want to follow the God that Naomi served. But when the story continues, she follows Naomi to Israel, and the story of Boaz, where how strategically she and Naomi thought of a way of how she would glean the wheat from the Boaz's field, and he was attracted to her. And the humility of Ruth, but the loyalty is what's really, really stands out for me with her, because it brings everything to heart for me. Because my mother-in-law, I call her my Naomi, and I'm kind of making it personal here, where this was a woman, when I met her, I didn't know God, and that's why I called her my Naomi, because she was the reason why I wanted to learn more about Jesus Christ, because of the life that she led. So I think of now the loyalty for me as an individual in sharing the word of God. But going back to the story of Boaz, how God strategically placed her where Boaz is attracted to her, he marries her, and then the lineage of David, where she was herself, Ruth, and Boaz were the grandparents of King David. And that's the lineage to Christ. So we talk about how God used her from coming from a foreign land into a foreign land, and, to suffer, the loss of her husband, and then following her mother-in-law to a new, where she was first raised. And women talked about her. They laughed at her. She was an outsider, but Boaz found her. This is how God works. And this is how God used Ruth. So for me, that's very personal, because I just love the story. Such a beautiful story where it starts off challenging, but Christ comes out of that whole lineage. So for me, that's the woman in the Old Testament that very close to my heart.
That's beautiful. I heard adaptable, humble, and loyal. Those are three key things that we know exemplified Ruth. And so let's hear from Ruth's namesake, Evangelist Ruth. What say you about a woman in the Bible? And you know what, if you would rather, go to a New Testament, because we spent a lot of time and hit some really good ones in the Old Testament. But if you have a good fiery one in the Old Testament, feel free to share. But if not, you can jump to a New Testament woman if you want.
Comments, Sister Buffalo did an excellent job.
Okay.
Ruth, and that was the person, the ladies that I was going to talk about. Oh my.
That's better.
Okay, that was the person that I was going to talk about because I admired Ruth and Naomi both, because Naomi was not a selfish person. She could have taken those girls and asked them to go back home with her, even though she didn't know what she was going to encounter when she got back home. But she was a selfless woman, and Ruth was such a loyal daughter-in-law that she was going with her mother, even mother-in-law, even though she didn't know she was what she would encounter when she got back there. But there was just this symbol of loyalty and devotion and loving kindness that was exhibited by Ruth and her mother-in-law. There was a great respect there. Naomi must have in some way impressed upon Ruth or showed godliness through her character, her life, even though she was broken and a widow. She told them, go back, stay here, go back to your home, remarry, start your life over. But they didn't. Ruth was so dedicated to Naomi that she went along with Naomi, and Orpah went back home. And we can't blame her for that. Sometimes we blame people for things that we don't understand, but God has a purpose for all of our lives. And Ruth certainly had a great purpose, as Sister Buffalo said. Jesus Christ came through that lineage, and that was wonderful. But when I was a young girl, I grew up in the church. One of the persons in the Bible that I loved most was Esther, Queen Esther. Not because I wanted to be a queen or dreamed that I could be a queen, but I always thought about the story of Esther, because people think that because she was in the palace that everything was rosy and she probably had an easy life, but she went through an awful lot to be the queen. And no doubt there were people who criticized her or maybe talked about her, even though she was a beautiful person. The Bible mentions her beauty, and that's why the king chose her. But I'm sure that Esther had to encounter a lot of talk and things said about her. Why did he choose her? Or I should have been chosen. And so we go through those kinds of things in life that we should not have to, but that's a part of living. And we have to learn how to deal with that. And I thought Esther's purpose was to save her nation. It took courage to do that because her life was at stake. I mean, she was not at liberty to go before the king without being summoned. And she called her maids together, and they fasted and they prayed, which speaks to me. Sometimes we got to wait before we move too fast and get directions from God. And when we get our directions and our orders, then we can have greater success in moving out, not going ahead, trying to do it in and of ourselves, but knowing that we have an awesome God and that he's able. And even though in the book of Esther, it does not mention God, there's no way in the world that you can read Esther and not know that God was involved in that story. So that she's saved. She took the chance. Sometimes you've got to risk it. Sometimes it may not look easy for us, but we have to risk and know that she was going to save a whole nation. And today, even today, there may be people, things that we say, there may be people who will talk about you or will not receive the information that you're giving. And you can't get angry because they don't accept what you're saying all the time. But just know that what you're saying, you're being led of the Lord. If it's something that's a value, something that's good, something from the word of God, then we have to speak it. We have to be bold enough to speak it. And that's what Esther was. She said, if I perish, I perish, but I'm going to see the king. And she didn't go in there like a drama queen trying to be tough and bad and that way. But she had a humility about her that when she went before the king, she asked for his favor. And sometimes that's what we have to do. We pray to God and ask for favor. And in doing so, you know the story of how she saved the Jews from being annihilated. So she's always been one of my favorite persons in the Bible. I just thank God for her life. That mind, I try to emulate some of those things in my own life as being a blessing to others. As some of the other ladies have said, it's not about us. It's not all about us. And yes, we are important in the body of Christ, but we have to look and make sure that we're touching the lives of others. We're mentoring others. We're pulling others along with us. And I think that's how we can make a great impact.
That's good. There was a question in the chat. Sister Ruth Monroe wanted to know, or wanted one of us to explain the purification process of Esther. And since you spoke about it, Evangelist Pryor, do you have any points that you can share with her about the purification process that Esther went through? I'm assuming she's talking about, before she was presented to the king, the purification process that she went through.
Well, it took months. I mean, it wasn't something that she just went in one day and like we do at the spa and have a couple hours at the spa to be prepared to go before the king. But it was a long process. And she went through an awful lot. They used different perfumes and all kinds of things to clean the skin and fragrances and all of that. So, I can't think of them right now, but I know that she went through a very, very vigorous process so that when she did go before the king, everything was fine. We use a lot of oils and things today to try to get rid of the blemishes and the flaws and all of that. But it takes time to arrive at some of the things that we have to do. We just can't overnight, but we have to make preparation. And she had to go through a lot of preparation before she could go to see the king.
And I think it was, definitely cultural because, when I believe the king probably was going through his decision process, every person that probably went before him had to go through, the same process just because of the culture of that time. Sure. That was very important, part of the process. So thank you for engaging in the chat. Thank you, Sister Ruth. Evangelist Ruth and Sister Ruth Monroe, Mother Ruth Monroe, for asking that question. And some other people said that they love Abigail, as one of their heroes. And there's so many people, in the Bible, so many women, so many unnamed women, so many unlikely women. When we talk about the prostitute Rahab that Missionary Littles talked about, when we think about the maids, we think about Hagar and Zilpah and Bilhah. These are women who weren't necessarily the it women. They were kind of the help, the concubine, the woman on the side, and we know that Hagar, kind of got pushed to the curb. And so we know that in the Bible, we have both victors and victims. And, how relevant is that for us today? We have women that, go through very, atrocious things and have rough lives and, are mistreated, molested, sold into sex trafficking. So we know that everything is not rosy, for us as women, especially, in the Middle, Eastern, in the Eastern society. In the Bible days, it was a very patriarchal society. We know that, men pretty much, controlled everything. And so, and the story of the Bible, is definitely written from a male narrative. We know that women are, in the Bible, and we see their accomplishments. But when we think about, the social, the economic, and the cultural challenges, what can you think of some other things that women had to overcome then that they may also have to overcome today? I know it was just a different time because of the patriarchal society. But, what are some things that you can think about in the Bible, and then also, how we've overcome them today? Does anybody want to chime in on that?
I think maybe women were seen as second-class citizens back then. And yes, we've come far because of women's rights and the women's suffrage and all of that happened, that have given us a place in society today. But there's still a lot that we as women are not allowed to do. That has come from the old times. Women still are not, they are speaking out more today. And even with, different venues that they're in, beginning to use their voice even more. Whereas that was unheard of because women were not allowed to speak in public at that time. They were, they were not allowed to talk to other have conversation with other men. Whereas today we can have conversations with our brothers, and our sisters. We can open up, they had to dress a certain way back then, and we don't have to do that today. Whatever floats your fancy, pretty much you can wear. And so they were they were expected to be in the house and not out the house. They were expected to bear and raise children and just be in the house. And so today we have women that are out working outside of the home. I think I saw some research that says the majority of the women that's in the people that are in the workforce are women that are working outside of the home today. And so we are beginning to come out of confinement because they were confined back then. So we're coming out of confinement now, and we're beginning to be able to use our voice like we have never been able to do before, and to look at some of the things that, women not being paid on the same pay scale as men. So we still have a lot that we need to address that will be beneficial for us.
And you said, you're talking about women in the United States having more, freedom and more rights to, speak out and use their voice. But even today in 2021, there are some nations, where women still have to, wear hijabs, and, they have to walk behind their husband. And they're, just in Saudi Arabia, not too long ago, women finally got the right to drive a car, so, you think about different parts of the world, and thank God, that we have advanced in the United States and still have some advancement to do. But there are still places that still live under a lot of these traditional ritual laws, where women don't have the freedom and the luxury as we do. So, let's not take those things for granted, women of God, and, pray for other women across the world that their voices, will be heard. So, Sister Ivy, I saw you unmuted yourself. Would you like to share on that?
Yeah, I don't know if this will come up as a question or even, let's think about, I think when I think of our human beings, and especially women, I always just think about what was the purpose of why women was created? What was God's reason for creating a woman? And I think when we think of the core characteristics of women, I think it's just misunderstood and misused. We are naturally just nurturers. We're incubators. We're processors. We take things in and we multiply them. But I think we have to understand, even in the Bible, there were times, Jesus was a cook. Jesus used to feed his disciples. It wasn't even the women. Martha and Mary just chose to serve Jesus in that way, just traveled, Joanna and all of them. But men were actually like the home builders back in the Bible. Some men stayed home and took care of the home while the women went out and did I didn't even know with research, like women were shepherds. So a lot of women were actually going out there working. But I think where we are now, it's a result of just a culture shift. And just, with, the wars and men having to go away and women finally having to step up, which we were already doing in some sense. But I think a lot of times it's just, we are misunderstood, and our gifts are not really tapped into to use to benefit our society. We are just kind of pushed in a corner to just that little part of us to nurture and to care and to build. That's all that we are used for.
That's good. And, when we think about the Proverbs 31 woman, it is a multifaceted woman. It's a woman who, held trade. She worked, she, took care of home. So she was a very ambitious woman. And, we should, strive to be ambitious, but we have to be careful. I've heard a saying that, women can have it all, but maybe just not at all the same time at all, so you just have to be careful, to balance that. But it's a great example of things that, women did and what we should aspire to. And so, Sister Buffalo, would you like to share on, any of those points?
I just like to add on, I think it's getting rid of the stigma, right? Where, this is your place as a woman at home, the nurturing spirit. I think now what we're seeing now in the society is now we're given a choice, because you do have some women that do want to stay home. So whereas before it was this is what you should be doing, but now we're given the opportunity to make a choice when we can. Right. So I think that's very important, where we've shifted away, hopefully, in the U.S. at least, is where it's almost expected that the women go out and work. It's a given. But then at the same time, if we have that opportunity to choose to stay home, that we do. So I think that's a shift there as well, where before it was you staying home, versus now, if you have the opportunity, you can choose to go out and work, not from a point where you have to, but if you can stay home. So I thought it was important to also share that as well.
That's good. And I see some great feedback in the chat. So, make sure you watch, those comments that are scrolling at the bottom. So thank you for engaging and your great questions. Sister Tara Williams, she said that women of color are still being judged by our variations of skin color and hair texture. That is so very true. So thank you for commenting. Evangelist Pryor, would you like to share on this topic? And then we're going to be wrapping up in just a few minutes.
My dear friend says that the Bible says, who can find? They haven't found her yet. Who can find a woman who can do all of that? So that's quite a lot of multitasking that this woman did. But just an example of some of the things that this woman did was just absolutely profound. I thought about in the New Testament, we've been in the Old Testament most of the time here, and Jesus elevated women to the point where he used them in the ministry. More so than in the Old Testament. I know it was a different time and culture and all that, but he used women in the ministry. The woman who was the adulteress, woman at the well, he loved them because of his mercy and his grace. And since he created male and female, he wanted to use all of them because he knew there was a purpose for their lives. And we have to realize in this day and time that we have great purpose. We just need to find out what is it that God has called us to do so that we can be effective in our calling and not try to clone someone else. Sometimes we start trying to be like someone else, and God has not maybe called us to do that. But in the New Testament, Paul, in our Sunday school lessons, we've been talking about Priscilla. We've talked about so many of the different women, Lydia, who was so full of hospitality that she invited them into her home, and how the church was started in the homes of different women. So women are valuable to God. And we cannot allow, that's why it's so good to know the word of God, because we see how he valued us. And when you realize that you are really valued, that you are important to God, regardless sometimes to what other people say, you have to stay focused, as our theme is for our church. When you can stay focused on who you are, who you belong to, then you can be effective and you can make some waves. And that's what we have to do in this day and time. We're not trying to be feminists, so tough and all of that. But it is time for us to step forward, because we have a lot of young ladies out there who need mentors. They need to see some good examples. They need to know that women can have difficult or challenges in their lives, but they can still be very effective.
That's beautiful. And that's what I love, about Jesus, that he, was definitely one that had compassion on unlikely women. When people in society and in their culture and in their town were pushing them away, Jesus, stepped outside the box and make sure, that he met women right where they were and, really poured into them to let them know that their worth and their value. So our time has come to an end. I want to thank each and every one of our panelists. Thank you, Missionary Woodard. Thank you, Sister Ivy, Sister Buffalo, Evangelist Pryor, for your great insights and, just your observation. We can spend another 3 hours because there's so many powerful women in the Bible that, we can glean from, we can take from examples, and, women who had very rough times, women who grew up, having a very privileged life and everything in between. But, that is, the beauty of the God that we serve, is that he can reach and touch people, especially women, right where you are. And so, there may be a woman out there today listening to us on Facebook and YouTube who, feels a little lost, feels a little down, really not appreciating or really sensing, that life is worth living or what value that you have. I want to speak life. I want to speak encouragement. There is someone in the Bible of your gender that you can relate to, to learn how God touched them in a very special way to help them overcome, to believe in the God that they serve, and to believe in themselves to do great things for him. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone who was commenting in the chats. I see a bunch of hearts going up right now. So thank you, women of God. And thank you to everyone out there in social media land. And so we just thank God for allowing our pastor to have this space to talk about, women in our wonderful history in the Bible. And then we touched a little bit about women in our society continuing to do great things. And as the woman said in the poem, take your pen and write the chapters of your life, but write them after you seek the Bible, after you seek a relationship with God. Because if you do it outside of the will of God, then, it's just, void, because we know that we are made in his image and likeness, and we want to make sure that we seek the source to get direction for our lives. And so God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. I want to turn your attention just a few observations before our time concludes. We are still inviting people to join life groups. Our life groups are kicking off strong. I think it's almost a couple hundred people, if not more, who have signed up, but we still have room for more. And so just touching in with different people, they're excited. The classes are going wonderful. So if you're still interested, and remember, you don't have to be a member of Victorious Believers Ministries. So you can share it with your family and friends. If you see a topic that you think would really speak to you, be sure and go to VBM Nation, go to our phone app, go to our website, victoriousbelievers.com. However you can, get signed up and get plugged into a life group class. And then also, starting on tomorrow, our Southwest 3 Reset Conference is going forth. Our very own Bishop Samuel Duncan and our Southwest 3 jurisdiction will be going forth on tomorrow with our services. And remember that you have to register for the free workshops. So you have to go to Zoom and register. The information and instructions are on the screen, but if it doesn't stay up long enough for you to be able to write it down, you can go to our website. You can go to Southwest 3's website, and it'll show you exactly how you do it. Now, it is free, but you have to register. The services will be on Facebook and through the El Kojic YouTube page, but you have to register if you want to go into those workshops. And we see a lot of familiar faces who will be presenting: our own Evangelist Littles and Dr. Kathy Owens Oliver and Superintendent Lachey and Pastor Cisco, Pastor Sam. So we want to make sure that we support our jurisdiction. On this coming Friday will be late night AMP. So our middle schoolers and our youth will be going forth at 9 p.m. via Zoom. So parents, make sure that your youth are plugged into our middle school and high school late night AMP, and they're on a new series Uncensored Christianity. And we need also some more people to sign up for our 21 days of 24-hour prayer. So if you have not signed up for an hour, we want you to be sure and sign up for an hour on the next 21 days when we do our 24-hour prayer chain. And so in this Sunday, it's starting today. So we need you to make sure that you go in and pick your hour. So we have every hour covered. And then this Sunday, you want to tune in. Pastor is starting a new series on unshakable hope. So this Sunday, he will start a new series. So now that we're focused and we're walking in dominion as we stand out and rise, we're going to learn how we can have unshakable faith to continue the year of 2021. So those have been your announcements. Don't forget to go to Cash App, Givelify, sow a seed this evening, an offering for this evening. You see the ways on your screen. And so we thank you for continuing to give. And so we just appreciate your generous heart during this time. So I cannot get off of our call, and I had it down to say early, but I want to say thank you to all the women who helped to make Women's Weekend 2021 an outstanding success. And so it was because of you that we were able to pull off a wonderful empowerment service on Saturday and also our Women's Day service on that Sunday. So thank you to everyone who participated, everyone who registered for the empowerment session. We just say thank you for just meeting us there and for the women going forth to unleash, for us to woman up and unleash our potential. So God bless you all. Thank you for this time this evening. And we want you to continue to live the victorious life the rest of this day and the rest of this week. And until we meet again on Sunday, God bless you. Love you all.
Love you.